Welcome to Module 8, Route Planning in the Himalayan webinar series by Peter, hosted from Chennai. We're live every day, 8 o'clock on both Instagram and Zoom at tinyurl.com/himaweb. The recording will be posted on both Instagram and my blog, ultrajourneys.org. So in this section, we'll talk about route planning, which is very important as an alpine style hiker. If you don't have a guide, if you don't have a clearly defined route, it will be important for you to spend enough time pre-planning your traverse, your pass crossing, especially again if you go to lesser known routes in the Himalayas. So today's topics we'll take a look at the logistics required. We'll take a very real-world use case, the Kaliheni Pass, which connects Kulu Valley. You can see one of my co-trekkers climbing up towards the Kaliheni Pass here, and which goes towards Barabangal in Kangra district. We'll have to study the terrain, we'll have to study the topography. The elevation profile will give you a clear understanding of the traverse, the steepness on both sides of the pass. Finally, you will have to come up with a schedule, how you cut this traverse in a number of days with suitable campsites at the end of each day. Food planning, of course, is very important. Depending on the duration of the crossing, you need to carry enough food with you. And then we'll talk also about mobile navigation. So let's get started with logistics. So the first step, obviously, to plan a traverse or a pass crossing is to understand which are the first and the last villages on both sides of the pass. So you need to reach those villages either by public transport or by foot or some shared taxi in case of Uttarakhand, most likely. So understanding the logistic to get in and to get out from the traverse is important. Then studying the routes, the exact trail, the routes, either it could be present on OpenStreetMap or some of the other maps. Like in this case, you can see the Kaliheni Pass here. So we're lucky that the trail is published inside OSM. Sometimes you have to look at satellite maps to a map like Shepherd routes, which are not present on any maps. You can also look at hiking sites sometimes like Wikilog or Rambler.com, where a lot of trails have been published by hikers worldwide. And then last case, you can also check some of the blogs, famous blogs of the Himalayan hikers, where sometimes you'll find reference points like latitude, longitudes, or sometimes entire GPS logs for a certain lesser known routes. You'll have to be aware, study the terrain in advance to understand the risks and the obstacles along the way, especially stream crossings, wild river crossings, landslides, crevices, and prepare yourself accordingly. Food planning obviously is important. Where are you gonna pick up the food? How many days of food do you have to carry? This again will have to depend on the estimation of the duration. Understanding how many days it's going to take to cross a pass is not always obvious. It depends on various factors. One thing will be acclimatization. If this is your first pass in the Himalayas, you will definitely have to go up slowly, not more than 500 meters per day. You cannot run into risk to get high altitude sickness. Obviously, it will depend on the distance. More than the distance, even it will depend on the elevation gain, the total climb, the total descent. Obviously, the terrain makes a big difference, and then obviously whether there is a trail or there is no trail at all makes a huge difference in your pace and in your total duration of the traverse. Once you understand how long it will take, roughly, still you'll have to plan a day-wise schedule. Again, mostly related to ensuring you cross the pass during a clear weather window in the morning. Avoid pass crossings in the late afternoon or evenings. After you fix your day-wise schedule, you need to find out a suitable campsites with proper water, proper flat space to pitch up for night holds. And that's it basically. So logistics, as you can see, of an alpine style hiker involve a lot of analysis and planning in advance, which is not there if you go along with a group, if you go along with a guide, or if you follow a well-defined, say, pilgrim routes where you don't have to bother about all these issues. Let's take a real-world case here of the Kalihaini Pass, which connects the Kangra and the Kulu districts. We will start at the Kangra site at Barabangal at an altitude of 2,250 meters. The pass itself is located at 4,800, so 2,600 meter climb, which is quite significant. And then we steeply dip down to this village of Baragram in Kulu, in the Kulu Valley at 1,700 meters, so descending 3,100 meters. The terrain will be a mix of meadows, which you can see here, beautiful alpine meadows where you'll find shepherds, river boulders when walking along the river, moraines when close to the glaciers, a glacier on the Kangra side, and a lot of beautiful forest on the Kulu side. Total distance is 50 kilometers. So be careful just looking at distance. You could say I'm an ultra runner, I would do it in one day. It's not that simple. I mean, there is a lot of challenging terrain, a lot of climb involved. And if you do this, I mean, you might end up crossing the pass late in the evening, which is not a good idea, basically. Duration proposed in this planning, in the sample case, is 4 days. I've done it previously mostly in 2 days, but I think with proper acclimatization and with an average fitness level, I think 4 days is the perfect schedule to cross this specific traverse. Steepness on the Kangra side is fairly gradual. It's more steep on the Kulu side, so we'll see how we can understand this in advance by looking at topographic maps. Shelters is a good thing here on both sides of the pass. For a good distance in the alpine meadows, you'll find shepherds, which means you'll find shelters, rock shelters along the way. Difficulty of this pass is, I would say, moderate. It's a solid climb, but the terrain is fairly manageable. There's also a fairly clear route for most of the distance. Danger involved will be landslides, as we'll see, especially last year. There have been a lot of landslides in this region of the Himalayas. So now let's take a look at the 3D view here, the Google Earth view. We have Kangra right on the left side with the village Barabangal in the middle of nowhere. On the right side, you have Manali here, the Kulu Valley with Baragram from the village from where we'll be starting. So I'll just now switch to Google Earth. So let me share Google Earth also. Let's share the screen now. Voila, let's take an interactive view of the traverse here. So with Google Earth, I can rotate my point of view. Voila. So here you can see clearly the Kulu Valley with Manali. On that side, you have the Ravi River Valley here with Barabangal. This valley is called the Kaliheni Nala. So the Nala is basically a stream flowing down from the glacier of the Kaliheni Pass. Here also we have a valley, but we'll not get through the valley. We'll rather go along the slope of the mountain above the valley. Finally, here you can see the Dolador range. This entire continuous range of snow-covered peaks is the Dolador. We'll have a beautiful presentation coming on that. So let's take a closer look. Let's start as we planned from Barabangal. Let me zoom a little bit more here in. Voila, here we can see two villages, Upper and Lower Barabangal, along the Ravi River Valley here, which joins the Kaliheni Nala. So initially, we're gonna cross the Ravi River here, it seems. Luckily, we have a bridge. We'll be climbing up through forest onto the what appears to be the step terrace forms of the Barabangal. And then basically, we're climbing up high above the Kaliheni Nala on the left side of the valley, probably because it's too steep to walk too close to this ferocious stream below. So we follow the left side of the valley. You can see on the way we're crossing some very deeply cut side streams here. So there we'll have to take careful as there will likely be landslides here. Here and there. Again, we have a steep crossing on the left side. Most probably the trail did not go on the side of the stream because these deeply cut side streams would make it impossible to cross them. Eventually we're getting down here, steeply down towards the stream, and then basically we follow more or less on the left side of the stream. After a while we come into the alpine meadows, where we are likely to find shepherds grazing as well as some shelters. We still have a couple of stream crossings on the left, which could be tricky depending on the size of the stream. And finally we go towards the higher regions here. Keep following the stream. You can see some snow bridges higher up at 4,000 plus meters. We have to cross across those snow bridges. And then towards the end of the stream, where we are almost near the Dollador, we basically take a short left, climb up through scree and moraines here, pass a couple of these glacial lakes on the way, and finally step onto solid ice, the glacier on the hanging below the Kaliheni Pass here. After we cross the pass, we get steeply down again, zigzag hairpinning down, over again loose scree and moraines, steep down, till we hit the meadows again. And instead of continuing along the stream in the valley, we stay more or less horizontal on the side of the valley here, go above a certain ridge, keep crossing side streams. Finally, we get on top of a ridge here, come down on the ridge, and finally get down to Paragram, the first village in above the Kulu Valley. Okay, so basically, if we look at it schematically, so on the left side, we saw basically we climb up left side above the stream through these beautiful alpine meadows where we meet a lot of shepherds along the way. Finally, we hit the moraines on the way to the glaciers where we climb up steeply out of the stream. A small glacier section is there. It's luckily a solid glacier, easy to traverse, no big cuts or crevices in the glaciers. And then again, as you saw, we steeply get down through initial moraines and finally hit beautiful meadows again towards the Kulu Valley. If you now look at the topography, so the previous satellite maps or Google Earth view gives you a good understanding of the types of terrain, but you also need to, more than that, you need to understand the steepness of the terrain. So here again, we see on a topographic map showing contours, clearly we see the Dollador high ranges. Across that we have the Kaliheni Pass. And from the Kaliheni Pass, you can clearly see that there is a fairly gradual descent here, looking at, say, the contour lines, which are widely spaced into the valley, and then you basically proceed along the stream. While on the right side, it's much more steep. You can see closely spaced contours here, so you're going to drop down pretty steeply till a certain level, and then basically contour almost horizontally above the valley, above the stream. So if you look at the elevation profile, you can see the same thing, steep drop on the right side until a certain level, and then you follow the valley for a while. You basically follow the contour lines horizontally until you have a final steep drop into the Kulu Valley. On the left side, it's a little bit more gradual. Finally, you follow the stream here, and then in between we saw there was like a temporary climb from the Barabangal side to dip down to the stream and then climb up again. So this gives you a clear idea, right? You're starting from around 2,300 meters here, climbing up to 4,800 meters. One solid 700 meter dip in between, so which again you'll have to make up later on. And at the Kulu side, you steeply drop down towards some 2,300 meters again, roughly. So if you now look at OpenStreetMaps, which normally I use for navigation in the mobile, you can download them offline in the map. Also, the contours can be downloaded offline. Here you can see all the details together, both the contour lines as well as the terrain details. You can see the Kaliheni Glacier hanging on the left side of the Dollador. You can see those glacial lakes. You can see the start of the stream here, Kaliheni Nala dropping down. And you can see the dotted trail, which we mentioned earlier, is available in OpenStreetMap as it climbs out of the stream steeply over the moraines, steps onto the glaciers, takes a right turn, and then gets down very steeply on the Kudu side here, where as you cross the main stream twice, you stay actually up on the valley in the green meadows below. So now proposing a schedule for this 51-kilometer traverse. So as I mentioned, the higher altitudes, the pass crossings, you always should consider only during a stable weather window, which means early morning when the weather is mostly clear and stable. It's not going to change too often. So that basically means that your campsite, the previous day campsite, should not be too far from the pass. If your previous campsite was either Bora Bangal or somewhere in between, then you will have to climb almost like 20 kilometers to reach the pass, which means you're only going to reach in the afternoon, the evening, and you're going to be in trouble. It's not about the 20 kilometers, but it's about the steep climb and the terrain that it's going to make it a little bit, take it many hours to actually reach that point. So here my point is actually, as we saw from the left side, you cannot really camp on this steep section here through the glacier or the moraines. So once you reach the stream, after a while, it makes sense to find a campsite near the stream so that the previous morning you can get up early and quickly traverse the steep section to the stream, to the pass, excuse me, to cross it, say, within a couple of hours during the late morning at least. It's good to have a campsite near the stream where it's flat, where you have drinkable water, and then within a few hours you can cross the pass. After crossing the pass again, obviously you want to get down and lose a lot of altitude, so you can put up a suitable campsite at a lower altitude, which is much warmer, hopefully in the meadows, some flat space in the meadows after you cross again these initial moraine and scree sections, steep sections below the pass. So, so this is our base campsite, you can say. This is around 25 kilometers from Bora Bangal. You start at 2,300 meters. Camping at what looks to be 4,200 meters cannot be done immediately. This will definitely possibly lead to high altitude sickness. So it's recommended to have 1 day of acclimatization in between if this is your first traverse in the Himalayas. So here, say, instead of again camping on this high point, we could come a little down a bit lower and camp at, say, 3,300 meters to get properly acclimatized before again you climb up another 1,000 meters for the second day. So equal distance spaced, the climb is also spread out, a total of 2,800 kilometers, total elevation gain is split into 2 days, making it a little bit easier. After camping again in the meadows, the next day it's you can do the remaining section towards the Kulu Valley. So 4-day crossing seems like a proper planning for this specific traverse with proper acclimatization, proper campsite before the pass, after the pass, and equal spread of the distance in between. To put up a camp, obviously, you need to find suitable campsites, which means 2 properties. It needs to be flat, and you need to have drinkable water. So again, in this case, the trail is documented on OpenStreetMaps. And this, in addition to the trail, you also have the potential campsites here, shelters marked along the way at various distances. We even have a small temple here next to a side stream where there is a shepherd's shelter. So this gives you several options depending on your progress. Where it becomes evening, you could push it to the next site or decide to stay in the previous campsite. Here you can see the same campsites in reality. In this case, it's pretty high, 4,000 meters. So the shepherds have built these beautiful rock shelters, which will be fairly warm in the night. It's typically a cold breeze blowing through this Kalihini Nala. Inside the shelter, it will be much warmer than, say, pitching up a tent in the open. These campsites will have water nearby, mostly from the side streams, as the water in the mainstream is typically a little bit more muddy. Pass crossing, as I mentioned, has to be done early morning when the sky is blue, when the weather is stable. You want to avoid like this situation where we crossed it last years towards the afternoon and basically got stuck in a total whiteout. Whiteout is complete here, dense fog on top, snow at the bottom, so complete disorientation, no sense of direction anymore. Lucky Given the fact that Kaliheni is a well-traversed pass by hikers and horsemen, you can see a lot of footsteps in the snow to find your way. Otherwise, it would have definitely been missing trail in action. Possible challenge, as we saw, we have to cross glaciers. The glaciers, however, don't have big crevices. We saw a couple of water crossings on the Kulu sides after coming down from the pass, and a couple of side streams on the left side of the valley at the Barabangal site. Normally, I mean, the trail is pretty clear, and overall the terrain is not too tough as of 2018. As of last year, however, in 2019, there were huge landslides in the Kaliheni Nala site, so the Barabangal side or the Kangra side of this traverse. So big chunks of the mountain were washed away, which means the trail was completely gone, which means made it very difficult to traverse right side above the valley. But as luck would have it, thanks to unprecedented snowfall the previous winter, there were still huge chunks of frozen snow bridges covering the wild Kaliheni stream. So it was actually possible to get down the valley by just walking on top of the ice covering the stream. Food planning 4 days. So Baramangal, you have a small daba where you can pick up food. Again, as my view on food is, for the first 2 days, you simply take it easy. You pack up fresh food, which will stay good easily for 32 hours. So enough to cover the first 2 days. And then for the remaining 2 days, day 3 and day 4, you can carry something to cook. Here we're cooking Maggi. More than Maggi, carry something nutritious like white oats, which you can easily mix with water, cook for 2 minutes, and you'll have some energy-rich, nutritious food to make up for the lost calories. Hydration, same thing. You need to be aware of the terrain, the topography of the map. Again, most of the time, the main streams are so ferocious that they take along a lot of soil, will be a little bit muddy. So your most likely water sources will be the side streams, which are shown here in OpenStreetMaps, or can also be clearly seen by looking at the contour map. These side gullies are clearly visible on the contour lines, which are U-shaped here. So wherever you have these crossings, you can drink your tummy full. No need to carry water because you can see there is a regular side stream coming along the trail. And then finally, navigation. So as we have the trail here in OpenStreetMaps with all the terrain features, with the contour map and with the exact trail, that even the shelters are there, even the stream crossings are marked. So it's pretty fairly obvious, even though the trail is not very clear again near the passes where the landscape is very, very fragile. Here those loose rocks and scree on both sides, the glaciers where it's impossible to see a trail. You'll have to clearly follow your GPS location on top of this pre-existing trail marked on the map so that you stay on track basically. Once you get down towards the lower sides of the pass, either the Kulu side or the Kangra side, you will see a clear trail going through the slopes of the valley. Voila, that's it with respect to route planning. I hope this gave some insights in how you plan traverse as an explorer, as somebody who goes away from the well-marked route or the touristic routes, or somebody who goes alpine style on his own without using a local guide to show you the way. Thanks for watching. Post any comments, any questions you have in the comment section below the blog or the Instagram post. Thanks for joining. Pramod, how was it?
Yeah, it's very good, Peter. Thanks, thanks a lot.
Okay.
It's a wonderful section. Very useful, very useful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay. Yeah. See you tomorrow then. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye bye.